everybody. Welcome to the place where we are all artists. Alright, so to get started, the colors we'll be using are white, black, blue, orange, and brown. I have my water, I have some napkins, paper towels, my brushes. Whatever you may have on hand will have to do, it'll do fine. I have a cup also to trace the moon. So these are lights that I bought at Dollar Tree. They are called Christmas House. That's the brand, I mean. And they're pretty good. So I'm going to use my cup to start tracing the moon. So I pick one of my smaller brushes, I wet it and I dry it really well. And I'm simply going to make an outline of the moon using the sky, the color of the sky, which will be blue. So that's the first step. It's pretty simple. We're tracing a circle. We want to make sure we get the outline correct. You know, as an artist, I use tracing tools, stencils, projectors all the time for accuracy. So once I have this circle, I can remove the cup. And then what I'm going to do is make the shape of the pumpkin, the outline, with blue in the same brush. So I'm using this size brush because it's kind of neat, right? If it's too big, it'll be too broad, the brush strokes. Then I start painting around the two shapes, but let's start with the moon first. Now this brush, if I use this to continue painting the background, it'll take too long. So I'm going to move on to a bigger brush so that it can be much quicker. I wash it, I dry it. This happens to be about a 1/2 inch brush. So I washed it and dried it, and I'm going to fill in all of the space around the moon and eventually the pumpkin shape too. So I will say that this tutorial, this painting activity is actually quite different from anything we've done previously on our channel. I mean, we've done tons of these outside with so many people, thousands of these. But as far as our channel on YouTube, this is a first, like such a different kind of project. And I mean, like, not associated with a movie, but instead just the holiday of Halloween, my favorite holiday. So as you can see here, I navigated around the pumpkin. I navigated around it. I didn't cross into the lines. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a smaller brush and I'm going to start painting the pumpkin itself. So I'm going to make the eyes and the nose and of course the mouth. Now this project is going to be a light up project. Okay. I will say everything is optional, but the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to cut out these shapes, these eyes and the nose and the mouth shapes. I'm going to cut them out later using an X-Acto knife. And for now, I'm still just painting the inside of the pumpkin. And the cutting out of the shapes, the eyes and the nose and the mouth, is so that I could then use the lights that I showed, the lights that I bought from Dollar Tree, so I could show them through and it will illuminate the pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern. So it's just a nice little craft that you can use to decorate, put it by your window so trick-or-treaters can see it, or just if you love Halloween like I do, just decorate your home for your own viewing. So now what I'm going to do is paint the stem on the top of the jack-o'-lantern. So it's simply brown. Mine is burnt sienna. That's all I'm just using, painting this shape and filling it in. So in between colors, of course, once again, I do wash the brush and dry it really well. And what I'm doing now is just best practice. I'm going to give this whole background of blue sky another layer of paint, another layer of blue paint, so that it could be nice and solid and very, very strong, very rich. And now I'm going to use one of my thinner brushes to add some black outlines. I'm going to start with the jack-o'-lantern and add a rich, strong outline using black paint, but I did add a couple of drops of water to the black paint to make it thinner so that it could be very thin and these lines will come out nice and crisp and sharp. Because if it's too thick, it won't look sharp at all. It'll be very thick lines, very broad strokes. So this way, by adding some drops of water to the paint, it makes the consistency much more like ink, like very thin and very strong and striking. So just quickly, I'm going to add another layer of brown to the stem, but this time I'm going to add a little bit of white to the brown mixture on my paper plate, and I'm going to make a lighter shade of that burnt sienna or raw sienna and add it to the stem. And while I have your attention, I want to just recommend that you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that way you'll stay up to date with our latest tutorials like this one, our latest time lapses, our latest sculpting videos, our latest digital art videos. We are really expanding. I love creating art to the films that I grew up watching, especially of the horror genre. So check out some of our tutorials, some of my tutorials, like tutorials to I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, Halloween, Jason, Friday the 13th, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Go check out our playlist tutorials and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So here actually I made a little bit of a mistake. Okay, so I was trying to paint the tree, but I realized that I actually have to add glare to the moon. So let's add some glare to the moon. So it's simply white paint, and I paint the inside of the moon in its entirety. And then I'll show you how I add the glare. I did this with one of my previous videos very recently, the video on Sleepy Hollow, how to paint Sleepy Hollow. So you fill in the inside of the moon, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the paint that's on the brush to add the glare. But the paint on the brush is too strong, so we have to kind of minimize it and weaken it. We have to minimize it by dumping the brush in water like this, or dipping it, I should say, taking it out and wiping off, most of the paint. You'll be left with a little bit of paint that you can use to add some soft glare, very soft. That way it's very, very ethereal, very see-through, very translucent. Okay, so now on to the tree. Okay, so I'm gonna use black paint and I'm gonna use a thin brush, a small brush, so that I can make fine, thin lines. I add a couple of drops of water once again to the black paint so that it could be nice and thin. And then I start adding the tree as such. Now notice how I hold the brush and how I use it to make thin lines, using it as a kind of like a cutting tool. Like I'm using it as a blade to make these sharp lines. And the next step is to fill in the inside of the tree. So I start off with the same brush that I made the limbs with, but for the trunk, I'll definitely move on to a bigger brush. So now I'm going to add a lot of branches to the limbs that I added. I'm going back down a little bit in size, in brush size, with black paint. Make sure it's watered down a little bit. And I branch out of these limbs that are already there. So I start somewhere in the limb and then take off. branch out. I'm gonna add a whole bunch. And now on to one of the main stars of the painting, besides the jack-o'-lantern, of course, and another character we'll add in a moment. So right now we're gonna add an owl that's perched on that long branch. It's a matter of simply adding these shapes that will form the shape of a mighty owl. And right after the owl, we'll paint a nice Halloween cat. And this too is basically also just shapes that we're putting together to form what is going to be a feline. And now I'm going to add some bats to the night sky. So these bats are basically like Batman's batarang. That's all they are. So I'll zoom in so you can see how simple it is to make these. The only other thing I'll say about this is that actually I did go down to a detail brush now, a very, very small, fine brush for these small creatures. A couple of more up here, as many as you want, as few as you want. And then the next step is to add another layer, like we did to the sky, another layer of paint, but this time to the tree. So now I'm gonna add a little bit more orange paint to this jack-o'-lantern, just in between some of these lines, sporadic almost, just adding more orange paint to the jack-o'-lantern. I'm gonna add some white light that is hitting these characters and some of these objects. So I'm taking white paint, my small brush, the brush that I use to make the black outlines on the pumpkin. And I'm gonna add light, just tiny light, tiny lines that are facing the light source, which in this case is the moon. So you will notice that I don't just put the light everywhere, like on all sides. It's the sides that are facing the moon directly. That's where I put these thin white lines that are basically light that is being reflected, shining on these characters and these objects. So I'm just gonna add some of that black outline to the stem and also some lines inside to add some texture to the stem as well. Once that dries, then I'm gonna also add the white light to the stem as well, but the side once again that faces the moon. And I'll also add light to the jack-o'-lantern itself, but once again only to the side or the sides that face the moon. Now I'm going to cut out the shapes, the eye shapes, the nose shape, and the mouth shape. And after that, you'll see me attach lights through the back of the painting using regular but strong tape to keep it attached. Of course, any other adhesive will do as well, but I'm just gonna use what I have right now, which is the tape that will keep it in place. So this is the last step. I'm gonna attach the lights. I'm gonna first arrange them so that they could be basically as eyes, one through the nose, and then the rest will be basically the upper and bottom teeth of this jack-o'-lantern that will be smiling so brightly and so in a sinister kind of way and in a fun way to celebrate our favorite holidays,